I'm struggling to think of another time where I've had such high hopes after reading the first book in a trilogy and just really been this disappointed after finishing the whole thing. Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video, we're going to be talking about the Arrows trilogy, which is the first published trilogy in Valdemar by Mercedes Lackey, which is the first book, Arrows of the Queen, and then Arrows Flight and Arrows Fall. I had a copy from the library that had all three, so I only own the first one at this time. And not long ago, I did my review of the first book, which I quite liked. It does have some aspects that were a little bit younger reading, and there were some spots where not a whole lot happened, and it did a couple of tropes I wasn't a huge fan of, but the writing was really good, and there's something about it I just felt really charming. And I liked that though we were dealing with some, kind of like wish fulfillment things with the character who always dreamed of becoming a herald and being chosen and then comes to have that happen. There was a lot of complexity to the character because of the culture that they were coming from, and their psyche and like their trauma that they were dealing with. And so I thought it really worked well, and it was a character you could immediately feel for, and it took what should be this great thing that they're chosen to be a herald, and they're just afraid it's going to be taken away from them. And I feel like what's set up with the world building as well, with the heralds, they're chosen by the companions, which are these like magical horses, which are very intelligent. And there's this background of like the founding of Valdemar and how the companions came. And a lot of that stuff set up, I thought that was interesting, and it felt like it was really building up to what was going to be a lot more happening in the trilogy. So I was pretty high on this. I really enjoyed the book, and then I got to book two, and book two. I went from 4 stars with the first one to 2 stars with book two. I really did not like the second book. The second book, and so I'll note here that this is going to be generally spoiler free, but I am going to talk about some like high level things that happen. So if you want completely no spoilers, then this is probably not going to work. But I'm gonna try and be as general as possible to not spoil anything badly. But it's going to be some borderline stuff because I'm going to be specifically talking about some things that happen in books 2 and 3. So it is what it is. Be aware. So book 2 sees the character going off on their sort of like their first run as a herald, where they're going off on their rounds. They're going to be gone for like a year, and they're going with the dreamy guy who they had been talked about in the first book, but who they weren't specifically interested in. I do want to call out too. I mentioned in the first book, there was kind of a romantic subplot, but I liked the way that it was handled, and I won't go into specific things with it, but it kind of ends up not working out, but in a way I think that was well written and realistic. And then in book 2, it's kind of established like right away that the character is interested in someone else who's not the dreamy guy, but then that the dreamy guy who she's assigned with to go off on her year. And it's just, I feel like for so much of this, we're kind of looking at the relationships and that type of thing, and spending a lot of book 2 with the stuff that was my least favorite parts about the first book. But then, and this is where this is a spoiler kind of for an event that happens in book 2, so yeah. But they end up getting like snowed in, and they're trapped for like a month in this way station, and just end up like hooking up platonically though, because it is mentioned that the heralds are very hedonistic to an extent, and big on just general hooking up. But they end up just like hooking up, all the while both being aware that she likes his best friend, and that they're just fine with it, and they're just like, oh yeah, it doesn't mean anything. But then we have to have this time where each of them is like agonizing over, what if the other one thinks that I like them when I really like the friend, or like, was she really likes my friend? What? Oh no. And I was so annoyed that we spent so much time just like agonizing over this, going back and forth. As well as the other thing is there are like rumors about the main character as well, in like about what she's doing with her kind of magical abilities, and we just spent so much time agonizing over that. And while that part at least fit and made sense with the character, it's between that and the especially annoying all of the relationship drama. I was just so annoyed. And we spent so much of this book doing that. Now, at the end, there is like, I guess, the climax of something that happens where there's like a really bad thing that happens and the characters have to deal with it. And, there was that right at the end, but it was just like by that point I was really so checked out that even though there were some scenes that were really well done there, because the writing is still good is the thing. The writing is still good, and I can see by people who are a bit more into that type of plot line probably wouldn't have been as annoyed, but for me I was so annoyed, and it's just like I was pretty checked out by the end. And the end of book 2 is where it does have the first flash that this is potentially going to actually get quite dark, and then in book 3 things do get pretty dark, but also kind of out of nowhere at the same time. And that's the other thing here, where what happens in book 3 is there are so many things and there's so many choices where it just feels like the characters and what they're doing, it just doesn't make a ton of sense. They're just going off and they're doing things, and they don't make the right decisions, and all of these things, it feels very contrived. And it's funny because when I gave a very positive review to the first book, I had a commenter on there who commented about how much they really didn't like the first book, and listed some reasons why, and specifically said that they felt that what was done by the author was worse than what Eddings did in Belgariad, because they know I don't like that series and I've complained about it a lot. And so it was funny that they say that. I'm like, oh, I could see some of their points, but I didn't really agree either, and I had kind of commented back. But then I do book 2 and I'm like, okay, now I'm really coming around. And book 3, it did feel, I had a lot of the problems with it that I had with Eddings' work in the Belgariad, where it's just things feel very contrived. They feel very forced. It doesn't feel like things are happening organically. And it's just the villains feel like they're just very mustache twirly, and they're just bad to be bad, and things they're doing just to be bad and evil. And it does wrap around to some events, and there were some other things, but there's a particular character who we've known since like the first book is a bad guy, and other people know about it. And in the first book, it's presented as like, oh, well, the character, they're afraid nobody will believe them. But then like other people know about this. It's made very clear that other people know, and it's just like nothing is done. And this is a world where like they have a spell that forces people to tell the truth and only the truth, and answer anything truthfully and asked. And it's like, we can't test people. Like, there really shouldn't be a whole lot of treachery. Like, I know you can't probably just do that willy-nilly because it would be bad politically, but it just gets to the point where some of these things that are happening just gets really hard to believe. And there's also like in the first book, very specifically, the main character is brought on to be the Queen's own herald, and she's chosen to be that. And part of that is to help with the heir presumptive, who is known as the brat, because she needs to help, because her mother's basically neglected her, and her nurse has been corrupting her and making her bad. And it's just like, again, but why not like try that? And then in book 3 again, we have an issue where the heir is being like taken advantage of and being manipulated. And it's like, again, have we learned nothing? Can no one pay attention and just like step in, like an adult, like step in? Because we've already done this. We've been through this. And so just repeating that, it just irritated me, and it just felt very, very contrived. And that's kind of the thing. So there are some big things that happen. It does go very dark. Which is, some people have kind of told me that it went dark, and so I guess I knew to expect it, but it does go dark. It does kind of feel out of nowhere, but again, it's just all of the situations that these characters are put in feel really, really contrived and feel very forced to me, and it just really took away my enjoyment. I do think book 3 largely was written better. Still, well, I mean, I was going to say better than book 2. Book 2, a lot of the things I didn't like were subjective, and I still think that this is a well-written trilogy, but there are a lot of things that I don't think were done well at the same time. Like Mercedes Lackey is the writing is actually good, and I also get to this is a bit technically sort of like YA, but also with like really dark things, and so it kind of has that feel of the writing with the younger protagonist, some of those feel, but then also having the adult oriented stuff in there as well. But also sometimes with the stuff like that, it's like what audience are you going for? Because you're going quite dark, but you're also writing fairly younger leaning, and so I feel like that's sort of a mix there as well. But it's just, a lot of the events that we were leading up to just felt really, really forced. And that's a big complaint I had with Eddings as well. So that's where I just thought the comparison was funny, because I'm like, I didn't get that at all. And then I'm like, no, later I did. Later I definitely got it. And it's unfortunate because I did finish it. I actually DNF'd the third book 2 to 3 times because I was really just annoyed at a lot of things, but I didn't have anything else immediately lined up because I had been planning on doing it, and this was also just, I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna finish. I don't want to start anything else. I'm just gonna finish it, because that way, if I decide I want to read more books in the series later, then I won't feel like I need to go back and finish this. Which, granted, I know there's different time periods, because I'm not completely writing off Valdemar. I know it's an expansive series, but I'm just definitely less keen to continue at this point because of how annoyed and disappointed I was with this series overall. I think it had a lot of promise, and I'm still interested in the world, and there's a lot of things that I think would be interesting to see. Like, I know there's series like the founding of Valdemar. There's things that take place, different characters over time, but I was really disappointed with this, and like I said in the intro, I'm struggling to think of another time where I was just very high on the first book in a trilogy and then was this disappointed. And I feel like book 3 brought it up just a little, but I think I went like 4-2-3, but like book 3 was like barely a 3. Like, there might be some rounding to get it there. It just was still some of the things that happened. There were some good scenes, but there were also some scenes I just didn't care for. And I think the handling of some of the traumatic events that I think was done quite well in the first book, I feel like some of it wasn't handled quite as well in book 3. Some of it was consistent with the characters, but it felt like some things were brushed over a little bit, whereas we focused on some things a lot more in some of the other books. And just, again, I feel like it's the way it ends up wrapping around. It felt like book 2, we were sort of just treading water, and especially with book 3, because we immediately start out and just jump right back into creating this kind of romance drama subplot and having that be a big focus as well. And so the shift the focusing on that a lot really pulled me out of it. And then just with my other complaints, I found myself just really not enjoying my time with this at all. So there are my thoughts on the Arrows trilogy by Mercedes Lackey. Let me know if you've read a lot of this. Like, if there are other of the sub-series or like the books in here that you still think I should check out, because I was feeling really high on this after the first book, and I'm not so much. So I'm not writing it off, like I said, but it's probably going to be a bit before I get to them. But if there are specific ones I should check out still that are maybe different or aren't doing the things I'm complaining about, definitely let me know. And then, let me know, of course, your thoughts on this as well. Agree or disagree. I would love to hear from you. That's it for this one, though. Make sure to give the video a like if you enjoyed it. Check the links in the description, as always, for the Patreon if you want to support what I do, as well as the Wizardly Enclave Discord if you want to chat books, whether these books, other books, really anything at all. It's a lot of fun. We'd love to have you. And of course, if you enjoy my content, make sure to subscribe.